You're watching DIYNate. If you enjoy this video, please consider subscribing. Don't forget to tell me about your project in the comments. Hello friends, today on DIYNate, I'm showing off some of the main clips from my 2 pallet wood chair builds. I had a lot of footage in building the 2 pallet wood Adirondack chairs. I decided to make a long version that shows building both chairs for people who may want to follow along and build either the large or the small version, or for people who just really enjoy watching me work on camera. I also created a much shorter version, more for entertainment value, and for both videos, I'll leave the specs on how to build these chairs in the video description. I'm very happy with how these pallet chairs turned out. I did 2 different designs and both work great. One is a shorter seat with a shorter back, and the other has a slightly taller back with a larger seat. All that said, I'm very happy with these pallet wood chairs, and I hope you have success on your project as well. First, the pallet wood project disclaimer. This video is for demonstration purposes only, and I assume no liability for safety issues that may arise. I don't claim to be an expert on pallet wood, and when your pallet wood may or may not be safe to use. There may be safety issues surrounding chemical treatments used on pallets or other materials that the pallet may have been exposed to. Please use your own caution, research, and discretion when deciding to take on a pallet project. Additionally, pallet wood surfaces can be rough and cause splinters and may have nails or staples in them. Be cautious with working with them, and if you choose not to sand them, that could create a variety of risks for those using the furniture in the future. For dimensions and measurements with this project, pallet wood often varies by size, so if your pallet wood differs in size compared to mine, you'll want to adjust your design to accommodate for the differences. The pallet wood sizes I used were as follows. The pallet deck boards, also known as the tops and bottoms, were 5.5 inches wide by 1/2 inch thick. The pallet runners, or stringers, basically what the top and bottom boards connect to, were mostly 2 3/4 inch wide by 1 inch thick. There was some variation with the stringers, ranging between 2.5 inches all the way to 3 inches, but I adjusted for that by using like-sized pieces where it made sense. You may find similar variation in your pallet wood when you're working with it. Here, I'm pressure washing the pallets. These pallets I found in a dumpster at a nearby home construction site. I used a circular saw to trim off the ends, and then I went through the process of separating the pallet boards from the base, and in this project, we're using both the top side of the pallet as well as the base pieces. It can be a bit tedious to strip the nails out of the pallets with a hammer, pry bar, or whatever other tool you may prefer to use, and I don't show this in the video.
While the pallet wood is cleaning up, you'll notice it's got still some specks and some spots on it. We're really just trying to knock the dirt off and the debris so that it's in a much better place to start working with it. Down the road, you can always pressure wash it again after we're done. You see how muddy this is on the underside, and you don't want to have to clean that up after you've already been building with it. So what we're going to be doing, we're going to be taking this pallet wood right here that we've stripped down, we've pressure washed it. We've got 7 or so of these 4-foot boards that are coming from the base of the pallet, and we've also trimmed down this wood. It's roughly 4 feet slats here, and I've got 8 of these pulled out so that we're going to be able to use this. The good part too is we're trying to use virtually nothing but pallet wood and a circular saw and a drill. That's really the whole project. We're also trying to minimize the number of cuts we make. The less cuts, the easier the project. I know that from experience, so I'm trying to not make this one of these sophisticated Adirondack chairs. We just want to make it functional and hopefully get the best out of it. So now we've got our first board marked at the 24-inch mark, and we're simply going to cut this with these first 2. Our next piece is going to be the legs. Come up here, 20.5. We're going to just simply take this piece, come across here, measure again for 20.5 inches. Yep, 20.5. Like this, we now have our 2 arms that'll work nicely for our setup, and then we'll let the legs get braced here. It should be in good shape after that. So that's what we'll do. I'm going to mark this as 20.5 inch, 20.5, 20.5. Now we know these are ready to go. For this part, we're going to do a 13.5 inch measurement off the bottom to give us a picture of where the starting point will be. So I'm going to mark 13.5 inches. This is something I stole offline from a design, more or less 13.5 seemed like a good number. So I'm going to mark 13.5 on both of these boards so that I know
exactly where I need to pin this 24-inch cross beam. And really, all we're going to be doing here is taking these two marked boards, and we're going to take one of our 24-inchers, and we're going to tack him onto the front side. I'll probably put 2 screws on each of these right there. So I'm going to take my mark, just go right through the top here. We'll go ahead and do the same with the second. We're going to use some deck screws so they don't weather, they don't break on us. Do the same thing with this guy. Do the same with the second drill. Alright, so now we're ready to put it together. And I also need a Torx bit to do this part, since I'm using a deck screw that has a Torx bit end. So now we're popping these screws in here. Go ahead and drive that in. And then we're ready to tack them into this piece right here. We've already got the head coming out on it, making sure everything's lined up nicely. Just gonna tack them in. Right there, we're already in. And we're pretty good. That's one in, and I'll tighten them up after I get the second one done here. Now we're ready to go on the top there. Do want to make sure our line matches up. Good. Nicely. So now our first part of our Adirondack chair is set. We're going to take this one and mark it at 38 inches. So we're going to take 38 inches here now. Go ahead and cut across. That 38 inch is going to give me enough room here. And that gives me a little bit of room to work. It's a pretty good slope. And this gives us let the wood sit and rest on the ground as it is. And that's a good enough run. So let's do 38 inches. So we're going to take this guy. 38 inch mark. Screws in on the sides here. These. Drill those out first. 2 screws on that side. There. There. Filling these holes right here. Pre-drilling holes to get the screws started. Ideally, they will fit nice and neat. Should be good to pop those in with our driver now. Like to start these things ahead. That right there is good. Hold them in place nicely. Before I put that second screw in, I'm going to switch over here and we'll go ahead and put this one out. Make sure we get a nice level fit. Go ahead and pop our second screw in. Now we got a pretty good firm base we're working with, and that should get us in good shape for this project. We're trimming this scrap wood down to a 22-inch mark so that we can use that as a brace. So I'm basically going to just cut right here. So we're in good shape with that now, and we're going to come and insert this right here so that we know we've got a
good spot for us for our backing to kind of follow on. So that feels pretty good. And then up on the top, we'll take this 24-inch piece and we'll use that as a backer as well. So we got some support coming that should help us, and we got to just make sure we measure out the right numbers here to make sure everything's going to look right. Since these are the seats, we're going to look for the smoothest, best pieces to use for the seats. Places that are smooth on the pallet wood, usually there's a rougher side and a smoother side. This piece looks pretty good. We're going to trim them down to 24 inches. Kind of find the best places without the knots and the rough spots. So I think this side is probably a cleaner side for me. I'm going to come off and mark him at 24. 24 should just be about right here. Pieces, and you can set this first one here, and it looks like a pretty good angle there. Piece number 2, piece number 3 go into position nicely. We're ready to roll. I'm actually going to sit in it before I seal it up. Let's see how it does. Yeah, that would actually work pretty well. So without even tacking it on, I think we're in good shape there. Let's go ahead and hit it. All right, so we're going to go ahead and pop these screws in. A couple of drill holes, and knock this out in a hurry, hopefully. Got some smaller big screws. Two might be overkill here, 2 screws. Probably could get away with 1 if we're trying to save time and energy, but that'll be up to each person working on their own project here. So we'll make sure this goes in there nice and neat for starters. We'll make sure we're as level as we can be with the front, because that'll be the most noticeable part. That's gonna look good there. Now we're gonna give ourselves about a 1/4 inch on the base here. Just eyeballing it, 1/4 inch. I get too deep into this, but when I put that back brace in there, I did want to at least see what this is going to look like. So far, so good. For this part, I might just pop it in these deck screws so that I can put this on support in the back here, and that's going to help make sure that the chair has enough support on the back side. When somebody sits down, plops down, got a certain individual in my family who likes to flop in chairs and break them, so this is built for his protection as well as my chairs. So we will put this in here. Make sure we line this guy up. Side here. Go back to the other side. to give us some nice firm base there. And we'll put the last major slat on. Shoot for that, about a 1/4 inch apart, give or take, or whatever feels good to you. You want to make sure you leave some space so that water, rain, debris, dust can get through there. It doesn't clog up on your chair. So that's a good practice. So now we got a pretty good sturdy table there for us. Let's just take a look. Held up nicely so far. Moving right along. Like that angle. Alright, so now we're going to settle for doing a 30-inch backer. And we're going to run these. This is going to go quick. We're going to do 30 inches off the base with all these boards. And each one of them coming out at 30 inches will be nice and neat. We're going to have 4 of these. And we're going to pin them to a baseboard here against the back so that it'll line up nicely. And then from there, we're simply going to run a stringer across the back. Line everything up nice and neat. 30 inch for this one. Together gets really easy. We're going to take them and we're really just going to put these boards in a line. This even works as a prop. Let's see how they're going to line up here so that they will be tacked into the backing, and then we'll use the backing as a brace. So it's going to kind of serve multiple purposes here. Now I'm going to go ahead and drill it out. Really just starting on one here. So that, we're just going to use our driver now. Some more of those small screws. Feels pretty good right there. So now, just a second here, we'll pop the other 4. What I like about this is now, without having to do anything really else, I got a good spot where I can basically just line this guy up. And now my pallet chair is almost done. So that's going to rest right there. And then I just need to put some braces behind it. And we're good to go. So that lined up pretty nicely. I really like this method as well. Tack one of them in before I start drilling the other holes. I like the idea of not being all the way tight to the base, so that at least if there is something getting caught back there, it'll drain out water, debris. We leave it outside. Make sure I'm giving enough room to really do its thing. Cutting the backing to be 27.5 inches. Could do 28 inches, but I think 27.5 will be about right. So we're just going to go ahead and do that. This is our backing piece right here. At this point, this will attach to the back. And we will just see how far out we need to be. And the big part for this is going to be leveling these guys off on it, and then tacking this this one backer to it. And the trick also is this has a rough inside, and so I don't love that for either of the sides. But you know, it is what it is. It's a pallet wood chair, so I'd probably lean toward facing that on the outside and having the nice smooth edge on the inside for whoever sits in there. I can always sand it on the outside. So go ahead and cut that down. Perfect. We're going to run out at 24, and I might even choose to do that so that I can get the most out of this wood. Yep, it's a 48-inch board, so what I'm going to do is we'll go ahead and shorten it down to 24 inches, and we'll make the most of this piece of wood. Pieces here, or hinrests, and we will pin those shortly. It's a nice rustic look to it with the deck holes on the outside. That's our one shot there. Inside, tight the corner there. We should be able to just pop this guy in. Deck screws should get the job done. Something like this, good to start with. Start with what you already got, so you don't have to hold it in place while you finish it off there. Good solid hold. Do the same thing on this side. So it's looking pretty good. You can see how that runs nicely. Should be able to simply pull this back on, layer that in. Nice and neat. I'm just going to take a simple wood screw and we drill a couple of holes. About right here. Nicely. Each one of these guys comes right across the level, as long as we can get them anyway. Pull them up, as much support as you can on each side. Make sure you're not running too much to the lip. You tack them in. It's holding nicely.
Okay, so we made a couple corrections at the end here, items that I needed to polish up. We cut off a 22-inch board and put it on the back here so that it wouldn't be so springy. I think I put 2 screws on each side there to make sure it's nice and stable. I think my battery died about that time when I was making this video. I also made sure that my holes are good and centered over here, and then I came back and finished these off with a longer deck screw in each of the front ones,
and then hit the remaining deck screws there. But it works really well. I'm really happy with this project, and that is a very comfortable, and it's actually pretty lightweight because I didn't use the heavy 1x material. We'll see how long it lasts, but all in all, I'm pretty happy with this project. And it was a fairly easy build, especially if you know the specs. I kind of improvised. I also like that I didn't have to cut anything off the base there on the back feet and angle it, so it's going to hold pretty nicely there. Also like the uprightness of it. Some people might want one more slat in there to sit back a little further in the chair, but for my size, for my height, I'm about 5'8", it seems to work pretty well. So that's what we got.
All right. So, moment of truth. Yeah, I'm enjoying this chair. Feels pretty good. Nice and comfortable. If you enjoyed this project, if you try it out yourself, would love to hear your comments on how it worked out for you.
We're going to be knocking out a Pallet-Dirondack chair. Really excited about this project. I did one of them yesterday, and today I feel like I'm going to be able to fly through this. So I'm only using pallet wood, with the exception I have to sub in 2 2x4 pieces just because I am out of pallet wood that I need for this. So that's the only exception I'm making on this. We're going to go ahead and start making our cuts. Let's get to it. Starting with our 2 36-inch pieces here, 2x4s. So look for the cleanest side you can get, so you can get best wood. You got like that at 36. All right, first marks up. Knock these out with a trick saw. Also using Ryobi circuit saw, Ryobi driver, Ryobi drill, and a level, and that's almost all the tools you need for this project, along with some screws. Our 20.5-inch uprights. The goal of this project is doing this with as few cuts as possible, as few angles. I'm trying to make this the simplest, easiest Adirondack chair ever. So we'll see how it turns out. But I know my first version of it turned out very nicely, and I think I can do a much better version on it this round. So we've got a 20.5-inch piece here, and that's going to give us one of our legs. You'll see how quickly this goes together in just a second here. Taking note of the time, it's 5:36 when I'm really starting this project, so I want to keep an eye on that and see how fast we can get this one done. First one took me a couple hours. Now I know what I'm doing, so we'll see how fast I can get through this. 20.5, and I've got the measurements I've nailed down now after doing this project once. So two of these, so I'm going to go ahead and mark this one. Should be exactly 48 inches. We're going to double check it. 48 right on the money. 24, and let's go ahead and get that cut. So now we got a few pieces to go on here. These two pieces are my uprights, and so at this point I'm going to mark them both at 13.5 inches. 13.5 inches from the bottom. Mark ourselves a 13.5-inch mark. That's really the top side where the 24-inch piece is going to go. Do another 13.5-inch up. That means that you get 13.5 inches of clearance before your seat starts. We're going to put one of these 24-inch cross supports across right here, and it's going to go in at the very front. Ideally, you pop a couple pilot holes in there. So we'll take my drill right here. I'm going to put 2 pilot holes in. Do the same on the other side. Now for this project, I'm using deck screws with a Torx bit. So I've got my longer deck screws. I'm going to go ahead and get these started as pilots so that they're right in there, ready to roll. These guys are going to be the outsides, and so we're going to come in from the side, pop it into there. So now I'm going to put 2 of these guys. This guy. And now, let's take the first one of these, come right on top of it, line them up. 24-inch board. Pop that in. Next one up. Driver, you can go a little deeper into the wood. Always a good idea. Might want to putty that up if you care enough. For me, this project, we're moving so fast on this one, I'm not going to worry about that. And we're going to line them up. Again, setting the 13.5-inch mark. This cross support is a critical piece. Once you get this, everything falls into place after this. So right here, we now have our front of our chair. And as you can see, this piece sets up nicely there. And really, with the next two boards, because we're avoiding cuts at all costs, that's really our goal here. We're going to tie this guy right up here and make a couple quick drill holes. So I'm going to line him up to the top, and I really want to make sure it's sitting as flush as I can. I'm going to double check to make sure these deck screws are long enough to get more than just a little bit. So I think I'm actually going to go from the outside to the inside on these, since I've got more that I can tap into from the outside of this. You'll see me right here. I'm going to drill from the outside, and we'll drive it in just a second here. Line that up. I'm really just going to do one to start with each of these, and then I'll put the second screw in to make sure we're good to go. I'm coming from the outside, a little different than how I did it on the first pallet project. We'll run those two guys and see how they do. Point sticking out. Make sure we get it just right. See how quickly this is coming together. Having done it once certainly helps. And this is a modification of my first version. Learned a couple lessons on the first round. Now I'm taking advantage of it, trying to go as fast as I can to build a second one. Still not sacrificing quality, hopefully. Comes together nicely there. Drill a pilot hole. Because of the thinness of the pallet wood, I want to make sure I'm not giving up structural integrity by just using the driver and pounding right through the wood and potentially cracking the wood. So just like that, we've got our pallet base going. So looking good so far. And you can see right here our base is set. We've got the two pieces of 2x4 that we're leveraging. We've got the one piece 24 inches here, 20.5, 20.5, and 36 running out there. So we're in good shape so far. Because I use 2x4s, I have a cross support I need to make that's going to be 21 inches. I'm going to use this remnant here and make sure I can get 21 inches out of it. So I'm going to go ahead and run this 21 inches out and give myself my marks. So I'm going to use this guy as a kind of support and go ahead and cut that out. This is another foundational piece that, if you get this right, it'll be in good shape. Fits nicely. I'm going to tuck that in. I know with 4 pallet pieces coming out of the back, I'm going to have 22 inches is where I'll be. 5.5 times 4 is 11, 22 inches. So I know I'm at the 22-inch mark. I want this base piece to really be right here where the most pressure is. So I'm going to come up to about 17 inches out, and that's going to give me a good sturdy support. So that's going to be where we're going to mark that. 17 off the top, running back. And we'll do 17 on the other side. At this point, it's just a matter of hitting into some good wood there. I might have to use a slightly longer deck screw. Get a couple of these longer deck screws in my tool hopper. I'm going to go ahead and drill a pilot. That's a good pop right through there. We'll hit it with our driver here. You'll notice I'm only putting one in at this point because I'm going to come back, but I want to make sure I get the other side lined up before I go too secure. Should have no problem hitting this with the driver here. We'll pull together nicely. Our chair is now very secure, and we have the option to go ahead and put 2 more deck screws in here.
Now, we're gonna go ahead and do 4 baseboards so that we're in good shape there. Now, I'm gonna double check my measurements, make sure 24 is the right number. I really need 4 to give me 24 across. Each spot should be about 24 inches. So I typically try to find the best boards for the seats. These are my 2 best here. I'm gonna check them for 24 inches out. Unfortunately, these boards are not 48, so I am gonna have to use more boards than I'd like. Alright, so we got our 4 boards ready to roll. Sharks are ready to go. This is where the fun really kicks in. So we're going to tack the first one right here. Fits nicely. And I usually like to leave them about a 1/4 inch apart. So we're in good shape there. 2. And number 4. So right there, we'll land it very nicely. What I'm going to do, I'm going to just drill 1 hole on each board and tack it in on one side, just to give me enough stability that I know the pieces aren't going to slide too much on me. So we're going to pop this guy in right here. Make sure we're flush with the top. And so even with starting it off with pilot holes, you got to be real careful that you don't drive too deep into it. And by getting this first board in place, everything else will go pretty nicely after this. Got that first one in. Again, we're going to go off just a little bit of an offset here. And we'll come with this one. Not going in too deep at all, just popping it right nice and easy there. You can see it's got a nice spread, not too deep, not too close. The spread is actually a good thing for a couple of reasons, but mostly when you put spread in there, make sure the weather and the elements don't kill it. With water sitting there, mud or leaves or other gunk that holds water. So it's a good thing to have some spread when you're working with this, so you don't have to deal with other problems in the future. So, all right, so we're looking at a pretty good base there. Whew. Feel the back burn a little bit. I'm going to test it out, make sure we're moving right along. Quality seat so far. Feels good, sturdy, not going anywhere, so that's nice. Okay, so this is one of my favorite parts here. This is how I make this go really fast. We're going to do 36-inch on the back. So we're going to do 4 boards of 36. And my favorite trick is we're going to tack it right into this 24-inch board, and then everything lines up and goes into place. And that should give us 36 inches ready to cut. Here we go. Going to be some of these 4 boards, lining them up on this 24-inch piece of wood that's going to serve as the backer. I'm going to set this thing right here so that I can work with it. And we're going to set these 4 boards so that each one lines up to the edge. And we'll spread them apart about a 1/4 inch in between. You want to make sure you can even it out as much as possible. So I'll come in about a 1/2 inch off the side as well. Make sure you don't have any large gaps. It's pretty good right there. So now we're ready to tack it in. As you can see right here, I've got the 4 boards lined up on a piece of 24-inch. I'm going to pop in screws there, and then the whole thing is already set, and then everything lines up from there. trying to move fast.
All right, for those of you keeping score at home, it is 6:22. I had to swap out my video camera because my battery died on me. And so we are right in the middle of this, and we are now lining up this favorite part of mine that goes nicely into the backside here. Right now, we're gonna pop it in with our driver, and we're gonna use a couple of these longer wood screws for this one piece, just to make sure we really get a strong backing on here. Using our driver. Make sure our measurements are good here too. So I'm lining them up. And so far, right there, you're looking at a pallet chair already. We're gonna sit in it one more time, make sure that it's holding up. All right, here's what we're looking at so far. And you see how that base piece goes, and you can see how those are just hanging out right there. And now we're into the rest of it. Next piece we're gonna wanna make sure we check out is how far and how deep we need to go across the backside here. We need a piece that's going to run 30 inches is safe, and another board 30 inches on this side should do it as well. We could go a little smaller than that if we wanted to, and then we know we want to be at least 24, and in fact we can go even further than that since we're using 2 of these pieces of wood. So we know we need a 30 inches, so we're going to mark ourselves out at 30. Go with that. 30-inch mark here. Cut that guy. Now we got our 2 pieces. They'll go nicely on top here. I'm able to pop these on just like this very easily. That's going to work real well for us. So for this part, we're really lining up to the edge. All we're gonna do is we're gonna line this guy up right here, and we're gonna spike that. We're gonna center it as much as we can. This is pretty cool as well. Get that first screw in there, get it started. We're gonna come right there. See now it holds up nicely. Our next one. We've got our arms ready to roll, and you can see it's even stable off of that. It stays there nicely. And then really from here, it's just a matter of putting a brace on the back side. I was fortunate enough to find a remnant of a pallet 28-inch board here in my shop that I can use for this. So all I'm doing right now is I'm going to set this piece of pallet wood on the back side, and I'm going to make sure I pull them up as much as I can, pull the back up so that we're not forcing either of these boards to go too far. We're going as high as we can without aggravating the chair here. And I'm going to go ahead and drill one hole in the middle and shoot for that. I'll do another one right over here. And those are ready to tack in. So I'm just going to use a couple neck screws. So at this point, I've got this 28-inch piece of board, and it actually lines up about as good as it could get. I'm bringing it up as high as I can get it, pushing the back of the deck chairs just a little bit, because it will give back some when I release it. Tacking in one deck board, and I'm going to go ahead and put the other one in. That's going to hold. And this is really the most tricky drill angle you're going to have. You want to make sure when you come into this, you don't split your wood. And with this piece being a pretty thin piece, we're not going too deep into them. We're just going to go drill a pilot hole. We're going to do 2 pilot holes with a 2-inch screw. I'm hoping that's going to be enough to do the trick. And in the past, when I've done this, it's worked out real well. You got to pull this up as much as you can, bring all the pieces together. You probably want to do a little bit of an angle too. So I got my 4 pilot holes drilled, and we're just going to come behind it. So first one. Just start to push up on the side. Now I'm going to do one simple check here.
just to make sure we're not far off of level. We're right on. That's pretty good. I'm going to lift up a little bit on this side as I put this first screw in on the other side. Check one more time on my level. It's really not bad at all. Right, so now we're popping those final screws here. So we got our other one here. Sink this guy. Good shape there. So now our pallet is sitting upright. There's a time check here. It's now 6:40, and we've been moving pretty healthily along. Okay, not bad. And you can see it's a deeper chair. This one's really comfortable. It is actually a good fit, good angle, and the headrest is tall enough for me, which is good. So we got to come behind it and finish it off with some braces on the back. But outside of that, feeling great. So now we're going to come behind it. There were two places we wanted to come back and put some quality length to the sides here. Brother of mine likes to flop into chairs, and this is to prevent him from being the guy who destroys the chairs. So this is for you, David. Next, we're going to go ahead and put yet another support on the back here. I want to check how much width I need. It should be roughly 22.5. I'm going to take off about an inch to give a little play on either side, keep people from catching their arms on it, make it 21.5. And we're going to go ahead and take this guy. Also, remember that you choose not to sand it. Some people could get hurt or complain about getting splinters in the tail, and so that's on you. If you choose not to sand it, I'm choosing not to sand it. So if you visit my house and you come say hello, just remember, if you sit in my chair, you might get some splinters in the tail. Check my level. Yep, should be level. We're good to go. Awesome. I got two back slats that don't have screws here, so we'll just pop this guy in. Just to finish it off up here, I am going to do one more 2-inch screw. We're going to shoot these guys, and we're going to call it a day here. And I'm confident my wife is going to be happy. I like this one probably better than the one I did yesterday. Good to go. So that's a quality product right there. Feel really good about it. I'm gonna take my seat, and yes, that is awesome. So, ladies and gentlemen, I've been watching DIYNate today. I'm building an Adirondack chair, second one of these I've done. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, and you try this out, don't forget to give me a like, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff. My intention with building this chair specifically, avoid cuts. Avoid angles, make it as straightforward as you could do to do it at the maximum speed possible in the least amount of time. So it's 6:48. We started this project at 5:30-ish, and we are done. It's built. And also remember, I was filming, had to change out some batteries on my camera and some other stuff, so you could probably even do it faster. So if you want the specs, I will leave them in the description. If you watch my video, it's free, of course. And feel free to comment too if you have questions. You can modify these things based on your own measurements. The general rule for me was really understanding that start 13.5 inches off the ground is where your top board needs to be, and then run it back about 36 to 38 inches on the back slats, and then call this, I think, 36 inches tall. It gives you enough headroom to be able to rest. All built out of pallet wood, with the exception of the two 2x4 pieces. I had to cheat a little bit because I ran out of pallet wood, but I feel like this is a quality product, man. Really proud of this. And by the way, Ryobi, thanks for making a great product. All with a Ryobi circular saw, drill and driver, tape measure, pencil, and a level. Thanks for watching DIYNate. Have a great day. It's Miller time. Coors Light time. Keystone time.
All right, so disregard my heinous backyard, but here is the, I'll call it the daddy chair and the mama chair. One has 3 slats, one has 4 on the seat, and there's our fire pit. If you want to see how to make one of those, check out the DIYNate video on that. But you can see right here, 4 slats, 3 slats, 30 inches tall, 36 inches tall. Pretty awesome. Really happy with that. Now we have 2 of them, and my work here is done. So anyway, hope you enjoyed this video. Have a great day. all that good stuff.